Hello and welcome to the Rabyd Atheist. I'm Ed Rabyd, a former pastor turned atheist, now a compassionate anti-theist. Welcome to my channel. Feel free to like or dislike the video as you see fit, so feel free to hit those buttons. Feel free to comment below, and I would appreciate it if you would subscribe to the channel and hit your notification bell for more content as it is released. You're also free to share my videos as much as you like, because the purpose of this channel is educational in regards to atheist and deconversion issues and anything related to those issues. Today I want to get on with another episode of Sunday with the Rabyd Atheist. I'm just trying to give you something to watch besides going to church or televangelists or other weirdness. And so I want to just, pose the main question today is how has being an atheist changed your politics? But I also have a comment or two to deal with and some reaction to some of my other videos that I want to deal with. But I want to start with the first question. Now, when I became an atheist, I was still in the pulpit. I was engaged in working on a political science degree, so my politics was being influenced not just by the fact that I no longer believed any religious nonsense, but it was also being influenced by the fact that I was learning about, the political system. Now, I already knew a bunch about it from reading about it myself, and I knew a lot about the Constitution and things like that because I'd actually read it a couple times and things like that. But now I was getting into the mechanizations, and when people ask me what my political science degree is about, it's mostly about how to deal with the bloody bureaucracy that is like the fourth branch of government in the United States. And so it was more about how to navigate the administration and things like that, and how to get things done, and a lot of local politics, a lot of things that people take for granted. So how has my politics changed by being an atheist? Well, atheism really just gets rid of the God factor, but it also gets rid of this notion of a divine monarchy, okay? And so, I always struggled with that part when I was in the faith, because for me, being a representative republic or a democratic republic or being in a very limited government kind of situation was always the best for me. I figured it was best for everybody. I felt that even back when I was a Christian, that the separation of church and state actually was a benefit to the church. That if the church stayed out of politics and the politicians stayed out of the church's business, that was really kind of beneficial for everybody, because then nobody is playing this game of influence. And so I still kind of maintain that, because that really hasn't changed. My classical liberal libertarian kind of viewpoint has not changed. In fact, if there's one philosophical viewpoint that has probably lasted since I was a kid, it's that one. Me and my father would talk, the role of government. It's funny because my dad was dyslexic, so he never was a really good reader, but he was really good at listening, and he was really good at thinking through things and talking about things. And so he would talk to me about government, and I would talk back. And we both were pretty much classical liberal type libertarians. And, the main thing to me of being a classical libertarian is that to me is the essence of what it really means to be a liberal. Okay, a liberal is about free speech. It's right there in the root word, liberty. Okay, that's what a liberal is. It's about free speech, about people having individual freedom of choice, that kind of thing, that kind of idea of respecting the individual to give them as much freedom as possible. Okay, government is kind of a necessary evil. Us and Thomas Paine kind of agree on that. So, and oddly enough, Thomas Paine was probably an atheist, but he couldn't say that back then because that would have caused a lot of problems, even among his peer group. So I do know that he made requests that he didn't want any clergymen praying over him when he was dying, and they did grant him that request. So he and others influenced me to be that. So in a sense, I haven't given that up, and I've never given that up. The question has always been, for me, when I was of the faith, is what good is a monarchy? If we can look here on earth and philosophically look at the idea of giving each person freedom, giving each person rights, respecting those rights, and so on and so forth, then why does God set himself up as a monarchy? Well, once I lost my faith, that went out the window. I said, well, I don't even need to bother with that. But there is a problem because I don't think I was realizing how bad it was when I was in it. Now, when I was a fundamentalist Pentecostal Assemblies of God preacher, and I was going to Bible college, I was very much, part of a Christian nationalist type movement when I was in Bible college. But as I went through seminary and as I thought about it more, I said, I don't think that works to the benefit of Christianity. Because if Christianity can take over the government and make it a Christian nation, what's to stop Islam? What's to stop any other religion from coming in and doing the same? And because I don't want that, I'd rather keep religion out of politics and keep it out of government to protect all of us from any religion. And so that hasn't changed that much either after I had that bit. Now, I'm going to make some political observations in a bit, but my main issue today is, has it changed anything? I made a concerted effort when I became an atheist to not fall into the trap I see a lot of atheists fall into when they leave the faith. They leave whatever faith they're in, their fundamentalist religion, and that religion has a certain politics to it. And when they leave it and become an atheist, it's like they take that politics and anything that's the opposite of whatever they used to do, they go to that. Like if they were heavy pro-life, they become pro-choice. If they, were heavy, I'm trying to think of a good issue that's religiously related, but if they were heavy, the church has got to have a part of this. They become very staunch anti-church being in the state or whatever. They were formerly, they didn't think the churches should be taxed. Now they do think they should be taxed, so on and so forth. I mean, they do this, LGBTQ kind of thing too. Like they're against LGBTQ when they're a Christian. Now they're totally supportive and support anything they want to do. And the problem I've always had with that flip-flop, even when I became an atheist, and I said, all right, Ed, put on the brakes. Because just because religion holds to a certain political or ideological view doesn't mean that because religion's a part of it that it's a false view. Okay? I know plenty of secular people, for instance, that have large questions about LGBTQ. I know a lot of secular people that take a pro-life, more of a pro-life than a pro-choice stance. Okay? So religion isn't necessary for those two things, is what I'm saying. And I'm saying what I want is to take a look at every issue, to look at all the politics, and see what survives based on pure rationality. So I don't tend to play teams. I never really did. It's probably an autistic trait. I don't like being on a team. But to me, I just didn't want to flip-flop. I wanted to think through every issue, take the God and the Bible and all that stuff out of it and see if there was still something good to the viewpoint, even if I originally had religious foundations to it. I wanted to make sure that I wasn't just discarding the baby with the bathwater, so to speak. I didn't want to throw out something that was good simply because it was associated with religion. As I've said before, I think religion is more of a borrower and a thief of morals and ethics, and societal structure. Because I think what happens is, like the nuclear family, father, mother, kids, okay? It works. Evolutionarily, it also works. Take the religion out of it, and it is still a successful model of having a family and being evolutionarily successful. You get two parents taking care of kids, you watch over the kids, it works, okay? It works. That just because religious people uphold it doesn't mean that they came up with the idea. I think a lot of ideas, political, social, otherwise, are good ideas, and then religion comes over and grabs them because they're in the culture and said, yeah, well, our God came up with that. Okay? Doesn't mean the idea is bad just because they co-opted it. Okay? And so I made a concerted effort in this change in my politics, and this is a real deconversion issue for those of you deconverting. Don't just flip-flop to the other side because your religion was a fundamentalist religion. What you need to do is take the same rationality that caused you to leave your religion and start looking at political and social movements rationally. Get information. Look at it. Don't fall on a viewpoint until you've really come to a good rational conclusion for your own purposes. I think that's the one advice I would give you. I kept to that advice, and I can't really say that atheism so much changed my politics at this point, other than when I began to study morals and ethics from an evolutionary standpoint and using evolutionary psychology. I began to realize that morals and ethics are relative, okay, to a certain extent, but not completely. Like, most of us still agree that it's bad to kill each other, okay? There's a definite reciprocity that people expect. I started to look at why religion and politicians don't like gossip. Because gossip is, as bad as it can be and as far-fetched it can be at sometimes, what gossip does is it kind of undermines trust, okay? And authority figures don't like gossip about them because it undermines people's trust in them. And sometimes that's deserved, okay? That's why they don't like them. That's why submission to authority is a big thing in religion and politics, okay? Because they can't afford a group of people being free when they want to make sure that you do what they tell them to do. And as I'm working through my political science degree and I'm working through my atheism, and I'm spending a couple moments there as angry atheist, but in the pulpit, I began to realize that not all my politics was going to change. As a libertarian, I'd already been on the fence between pro-life and pro-choice, and I'm going to be honest, I'm still there. I think every woman needs to examine her own situation. And, the real problem I have today is there's so many ways to avoid pregnancy in the first place. And it makes me wonder sometimes, it's like, why are you putting people in this position? And from a political point of view, and if we're going to actually go for equality, if we're going to give a woman, for instance, a right out, and I'm just using this as an example of how my thinking changed on it. If a woman has the ultimate, I'm going to be a parent, not be a parent, with abortion, I think legally on the other side, the guy who got her pregnant should also have that option. But if he chooses the option not to have anything to do with the kid and have no legal responsibilities, he has no visitation rights, he has no right to that child after that, okay? And to be honest, I get the both sides of the fence. I remember recently, people ask me which atheists I follow sometimes from a political point of view. I followed a lot of different atheists over the years, and they all have political viewpoints. I think the only one I stopped following was Cirrus. And the reason I stopped following him is not because some of his content isn't good. It's just he's become a name caller. Okay, it's like every title is X is an idiot or this person's stupid. I don't really go for titles like that. I don't like name calling in the first place. So when an atheist figure decides that he's going to go down the true angry atheist route with his channel and just call everybody stupid and an idiot and not actually engage the ideas, and you show that you have a closed mind to any idea that's counter to yours, then yeah, I have a problem with that. I guess if atheism has done anything, is I've learned to see the religious versus non-religion, both sides of the equation really well, because I've been in one and now I'm in the other. And so I get the arguments. I understand the arguments a lot better. But politically speaking, I ride the fence on a lot of issues because I can see good intellectual positions on both sides of a lot of issues. Pro-choice, pro-life being one of them. You take the God out of it, there's some good pro-life arguments. Okay, secular pro-life arguments, there's good secular pro-choice arguments. And so it comes down to, what do you believe? What do you think? Okay, and this is where we're delving into the realm of faith. And so do the secular people have faith one way or the other? I don't know. Because on the one side, you have one group of people fighting for the life of what they consider an unborn infant, which is a noble cause if an unborn infant is truly alive and truly a living being. That's a noble cause. If, on the other hand, the other one's saying it's not really a human being, but we have to uphold the liberty of the woman who has the pregnancy. So you have one side fighting for life, the other one fighting for liberty, and we have to really rationally think about the issue. And that's tough. There is no, I think if there's anything that atheists changed for me with issues, it's learning that issues aren't always as black and white as religion wants you to make them. Okay, and so that goes both ways though, because a lot of people, oh, I used to be pro-life and then I became an atheist and now I'm absolutely pro-choice. Well, how is that not black and white too? Okay, if you can't examine the issue and look at all the facts revolving around the issue, you're not really being that, open-minded about it either. So yeah, that's kind of part of how I've changed. The only thing I really oppose in religion anymore is Christian nationalism. I am a little worried about it, and I'm gonna make a political observation as a bachelor's degree level political scientist, and this is just me reading the tea leaves. If the woke left, if the extreme left, and the extreme LGBTQ people don't knock it off, you're going to see the country go back to the right. Because I think a lot of people on the fence on a lot of those issues are just looking at the bad behavior, and they don't want to have anything to do with it. They don't want to listen to you, and that's the problem with being rude. That's the problem with canceling people. That's the problem with being a jerk. Is people begin to not like you. They begin to be more afraid of you, and as soon as they have an opportunity to throw off your power over them and get rid of that fear, they will do it. And a lot of people walk in fear of woke. Okay, they don't want the woke people to cancel them or whatever else. Well, what happens when those that are under that thumb, under that fear, see a weakness in woke and decide to cast it off? It's going to happen. So what's happening? People are still getting less religious, but conservatism and liberalism is still pretty balanced in this country. And that tells me something. That tells me a lot of secular people that aren't necessarily religious still lean to the right in some cases. And it still holds true that as people get older, they lean to the right. So they can become more conservative because they're trying to preserve what they know instead of going into newfangled whatever. I don't think that's right or wrong. I just think, as you get older, you want things to be stable. And so that's kind of where, I kind of understand. My prediction is that at some point we will stop going to the left, which we've been doing for the last 20, 25 years, and we will start going to the right, and it may not necessarily be religious anymore. It may just be people have had enough, okay, of being told what to believe. Okay, the problem with woke, as I have said before, it acts very much like a religion and like a cult. Okay, if your tactics are fear, invoking emotions so you can plant ideas, that's cultic. That's just like what religious right people do. That's like how fundamentalist preachers nail their audience. They make them afraid. Oh, you don't want that happening in your country because it's going to upset them. And you play that game. Well, the woke side of the left aisle does the same thing. That's why I don't like either one of them. And because from a political standpoint, I just think dialogue and actually sitting down and trying to be rational about it, and this is me being a stoic, is far more than just screaming at each other. How does screaming across the aisle going to fix anything? Well, that means you got to compromise. And the problem with compromise is nobody likes to do it. And except those of us who understand its value. So I don't know. Has it changed my politics? Yeah. I'm at least considerate of a lot of things. I'm certainly, even when I was a Christian, I was LGBTQ somewhat supportive. I'm like, I wasn't screaming from the pulpit that they were going to hell and sinning when I was in my last church. I was a pretty liberal Christian by that point. But I don't think that, just shifting one way or the other is really the best way to go. Okay, I think you need to think about every issue, and that's why I fall on certain issues that are different than the left. I find myself on the right on a few issues, and then I find myself being more of a centrist on other issues and seeing both sides, and I find myself on the left for other issues. It really depends on what my thinking is at about the time, and it'll change. It'll change at times. As I digest more evidence, I get more in tune with things. But I've just been reading the tea leaves, and I think the more obnoxious the left gets, because right now the right is losing, so they're not as obnoxious. Okay, but I think Trump is finished. I think DeSantis might be finished if the Iowa results are to be believed, which means we're going to get a whole different thing out of the Republicans this time around. And I think Biden is vulnerable. Why they didn't get the red wave, they did recapture the House, so the Republicans are winning, okay, a little bit. So what happens after this? What goes on? So next year's an election year. I make no predictions yet because I don't know who's running against Biden. But even Biden has his detractors. So I don't know. I don't know yet. Once I know who that is, I'll tell you what I think. But right now, just reading the tea leaves, I think we're slowing down moving to the left as a country. And we're going to have an inevitable move back to the right soon. Okay? It's going to happen. And I'm prepared either way. I don't get as upset about that stuff anymore. I guess as an atheist, I realize, if all else fails, you can kill me and it'll be over. Okay? And I won't have to deal with it anymore. So, I know that sounds kind of morbid, but, in the end, it doesn't really matter as much. I think that's one thing that has, because people think that what they're doing is going to leave a lasting legacy. There's no such thing. Okay? There's someday that this lovely ball, no matter what we do to try to save it, will implode in a explosion and turn into energy, and there won't be anything left. Okay, there's nothing permanent. Now, none of us are probably going to be around for that moment, but it's going to happen. And when you realize the finiteness of things, you just kind of, okay, you kind of roll with things a little bit more. Things are going to change. Things always change. I do want to address one comment before I leave. A commenter on one of my old videos, former pastor speaks in tongues, made the claim that the reason I can still speak in tongues is I'm still filled with the Holy Spirit, and that I really need to think about why that was. I'm not trying to be rude, but I know so many Pentecostals with their doctrine and theology that would rip that apart. How can anybody who doesn't believe in God and believe in the Holy Spirit be baptized in the Holy Spirit? That's just ridiculous to them as it is to me. Now, I've got the additional problem. The Holy Spirit is God, so I don't believe in him. And I'm going to tell you what speaking in tongues is. It is a learned behavior. I watched a lot of people. I just did this with my childhood deconversion story. And I just watched a lot of people speak in tongues, and after a while, you can just imitate them and do it, and everybody thinks that oh, look at that, he's filled with the Holy Spirit. I'm not filled with the Spirit. I never was. Okay, I learned how to maneuver through a culture, okay, of believing in miracles and speaking in tongues and prophecy and all this word stuff and word of faith and word of this and word of that, and I'm just done with it. But I thought the comment was kind of apropos given what I was working on at the time about my childhood and deconversion. So I guess it's funny. It was just funny to me, and it struck me funny that somebody would sit there and say, well, what it really is you are this. And I'm like, there are tons of Pentecostalists, somebody's got theologians that would say, how in the flip, given the Bible, is that possible? How in the world is that possible? Yeah, I want to address that comment. Well, I think that's going to be it for today's Sunday with the Rabyd Atheist. Now, I do want, you can comment down below, how has your politics changed since you became an atheist? Is there anything that's really changed? And remember, I'm very tolerant. You can be whatever you want. But I've gotten to the point where I just try to listen a lot more when it comes to politics and shut my mouth more, okay, as well. So just keep that in mind. So I'm always looking for, arguments one way or the other on various issues, but it's like I said, I'm concerned about Christian nationalism. I'm concerned about the country trying to rip itself apart. And I'm concerned with the fact that, everybody's screaming and yelling at each other and not really talking. And I think social media is a big part of that problem because it's easy to dehumanize an icon and a username. It's easy to dehumanize that. So that's kind of the way it is for me right now. I'm still thinking through a lot of issues, and I just really haven't come to good conclusions because I just don't see that either side sometimes has something conclusive to say. Okay, and so that's kind of where I stay open-minded and diplomatic about things and say, okay, well, you have this view, this person has this view. How do I find a middle ground so we can go forward? Because this is causing other issues, and that to me seems to be a better course of action. So thank you for stopping by. I appreciate each one of you. Comment below on what things have changed since you have moved from being a person of faith to a person of non-faith. What things have changed for you personally, what things have opened up in your political realm, your social realm, that sort of thing. And just, as always, live your best life. Be the best person you can be. Like, share, comment, subscribe, do the things that you guys do that make this thing work. We are very close to 1,000 subscribers. And then after that, it's all about watch hours, getting to certain points, and we're at about 2,400 watch hours, which is up like 900 in the last 28 days. Ever since I've been posting videos again, it's been climbing. So that's only a matter of time. And once we get 3,000 watch hours, we'll have memberships, and once we get 4,000, we'll get this thing monetized and get it going. So thank you very much. You guys have made that possible. Continuing to make a dream of mine impossible. Thank you very, very much. I appreciate all of you. Once again, like, share, subscribe, do the things that you do. Live your best life. Go forward with each day like it could be your last, because it could be. And you only get one go around, so make it a good one. And thank you once again for stopping by, and I'll see you next time.